On an afternoon when the spring sunlight illuminated the fresh green trees of Boston, Eleanor Miller gazed through her car's rearview mirror at her daughter Lily, who was hugging a stuffed animal in the back seat. "Lily, it's going to be fine. Grandma and Grandpa's house is a big, lovely place, and Aunt Victoria will be there too." Driving toward the Victorian mansion near Harvard Square, Eleanor was making yet another attempt to persuade her daughter. 6-year-old Lily simply pressed her lips together and hugged her bunny stuffed animal tightly. "But Mama, why can't you come with me?" Eleanor sighed lightly. "Mama has important work to do. Remember? I need to secure the contract for the new house the Weston family is looking for. If it works out, we might be able to go to Cape Cod this summer." Lily's eyes brightened a little. "We can go to the beach?" "Yes, we can. So please spend today with your grandparents. I'll come pick you up in the evening." As the car passed through a large iron gate, a 2-story white mansion came into view. Eleanor had mixed feelings about this house, the symbol of the Miller family's real estate empire. Though she had lived here since childhood, she had always felt suffocated between criticism and expectations. The front door opened, and Eleanor's mother Barbara appeared. With her perfectly styled silver hair and elegant dark green cashmere sweater, she embodied the strict aesthetics of Boston high society. "You're late, Eleanor," Barbara said, but opened her arms toward Lily. "Lily, come to Grandma." Lily hesitantly got out of the car and went to Barbara. Eleanor also stepped out and kissed her mother's cheek. "Thank you, Mother. This really helps." "Of course. But if you had let me know earlier, I could have adjusted my schedule," her mother said. "George came home early from golf. For you." Eleanor smiled apologetically. Barbara and her father George always prioritized their own schedules and expected even family members to accommodate them. Eleanor understood that agreeing to take Lily on such short notice was a major concession on their part. As they entered the house, George's low voice came from the living room. Eleanor's heart beat slightly faster. Even now, her father maintained his influence in Boston's real estate world, and his presence had grown more imposing with age. "So you're here," George greeted without looking up from his golf magazine. "An important contract, I hear." "Yes, Father. The Weston family's new home. It could be a significant contract for the company. Victoria would have already closed the deal." Eleanor felt a pang in her heart. Her parents had always compared her to Victoria. When she divorced her husband Mark 3 years ago, her father had criticized her, saying, "Your marriage failed because you were too fixated on your career." Meanwhile, her sister Victoria was treated as her father's right hand from the moment she joined the company. "So you're here." Victoria came down the stairs. With her perfect blonde hairstyle and designer dress, she looked glamorous as always. Victoria embodied everything their parents wanted: talent, beauty, and above all, obedience. "Thank you. Please take care of Lily." "Of course," Victoria turned to Lily. "Hey, Lily. I have lots of dolls in my room. Would you like to see them?" Lily, looking somewhat relieved, took Victoria's hand. Before walking toward the door, she gave Eleanor a small wave. "I'll definitely be back this evening," Eleanor promised. "Please don't let Lily eat too many sweets." Barbara waved her hand dismissively. "Don't worry. We've raised children before. And we might do a better job than you." Feeling the sting of those words, Eleanor maintained her smile. "I'll be going then." As she left the house, Eleanor searched for Lily through the living room window. Her daughter was looking back at her as she climbed the stairs. Eleanor's heart wavered at Lily's anxious expression. But this contract was necessary for their future. As a mother and a career woman, she had to succeed. As she got into her car, Eleanor took a deep breath. "It's going to be fine, it's going to be fine," she reassured herself. Eleanor surveyed the faces around the conference table. David Weston, the eldest son of the Weston family, and his wife Rachel had satisfied expressions as they reviewed the presentation materials Eleanor had prepared. "Thank you for this excellent proposal, Eleanor," David Weston said as he closed the thick document. "To be honest, we've received proposals from other real estate companies, but your plan shows the best understanding of our requirements. Eleanor smiled. Her effort, 3 months of research and preparation, sacrificing sleep, was finally bearing fruit. This plan prioritizes your feelings and lifestyle. Especially regarding the adaptable layout for your children's growth, Miller Real Estate Specialist Designers. At that moment, Eleanor felt a slight vibration from her bag. Her mobile phone. Normally, she would never check it during a meeting, but today was special because she had left Lily with her parents. "Excuse me for a moment," she said, standing up and stepping into the hallway. Taking out her phone, she saw 3 missed calls from Victoria. However, no messages had been left. Anxiety spread in her chest. Had something happened to Lily? She immediately called back, but there was no answer. She also tried her parents' home number, but again, no response. Eleanor took a deep breath to regain her composure. "It's fine, I'm sure it's nothing," she told herself. But deep down, an unpleasant feeling was growing. She returned to the conference room and faced the Weston couple. "I apologize. I've left my daughter with my family." "You have a child?" Rachel Weston said kindly. "How old?" 6. "Her name is Lily." "The same age as our youngest," Rachel smiled at her husband. "Family time is precious. If you have an urgent matter, we can continue this another day." Eleanor struggled internally. This contract could be a turning point in her career. But she couldn't stop worrying about Lily. Checking her phone again, she now saw a missed call from her father as well. Something was definitely wrong. Actually, she made her decision. "I'm a bit concerned about my daughter. Could we reschedule to discuss the remaining details next week?" David Weston nodded. "Of course. Family comes first. We're already strongly drawn to your proposal. There's no rush." Expressing her gratitude and hastily gathering her materials, Eleanor tried calling her parents' house again. Still no answer. With her heart full of anxiety, she hurried to the parking lot, clutching her car keys. As she got into her car and was about to start the engine, her mobile phone rang. It was from an unknown number. "Miller speaking," Eleanor answered quickly. "Is this Eleanor Miller?" "This is Officer Parker from the Boston Police Department." For a moment, time seemed to stop. A call from the police. Eleanor's hands began to tremble. "Why yes, that's me. I'm calling about your daughter, Lily Miller." The officer's voice was official, but there was tension hidden beneath it. "We received a report that your daughter is locked in a car." The blood drained from Eleanor's face. What? "Your daughter is alone in a locked car in the parking area of the Miller residence on Beacon Street, Brookline District. Emergency services are on their way, but we'd like you to come as soon as possible." "I'm coming right now." As soon as she hung up, Eleanor was overcome with panic. Lily locked in a car? Who would do such a thing? For how long? Even though it wasn't midsummer, the temperature in a closed car rises rapidly. Heat stroke. Dehydration. The worst possible scenarios flashed through her mind. With trembling hands on the steering wheel, Eleanor quickly drove away. On the way, she tried calling her mother's cell phone again. This time, there was an answer. "Mother. What happened to Lily?" "I got a call from the police." Eleanor shouted. On the other end, Barbara's voice was surprisingly calm. "Eleanor, don't make such a fuss." "A fuss? Lily is locked in a car." "Well, she was being noisy." Barbara's voice had a hint of laughter. "I just wanted to make her quiet for a while." Eleanor couldn't believe her ears. "What?" "She was running around the house, shouting, and not listening to me at all." "It's because you don't discipline her properly," Barbara continued in a lecturing tone. "I just wanted her to reflect in the car for a bit. That's how we discipline children in our day." Anger welled up in Eleanor. "Mother, that's abuse. Do you know how hot it gets in a car? Lily is 6 years old. You're overreacting." I left the windows open a little. "The police and emergency services are on their way," Eleanor shouted as she stopped at a red light. Why would you do this? What about Victoria? And Dad? Didn't anyone stop you? On the phone, she heard Victoria's voice. Hello, sis? You're really overreacting. We just wanted to quiet her down. You were involved too? Eleanor's voice trembled with anger. Well, Lily threw a toy and broke Mom's favorite vase, so we just wanted her to reflect a little. About 15 minutes, maybe. 15 minutes. Eleanor froze in terror. Even in 15 minutes, the temperature in a closed car could rise to fatal levels. Get her out of the car right now. It's too late for that. The police have already arrived. Victoria's voice had confusion in it. You're really overreacting. When we were children, we were disciplined much more strictly. Eleanor had no energy left to listen. I'm coming right now. If anything happens to Lily, I'll never forgive you. She hung up and pressed the accelerator. Ahead stretched the road to the affluent neighborhood where her parents lived. With trembling hands gripping the steering wheel, she prayed. Lily, I'm coming soon. Mama will definitely save you. Eleanor's car made it breathlessly up the elegantly curved driveway of the Miller mansion. From the main gate, she could already see the flashing red and blue lights of the ambulance and police car parked on the street. Eleanor's heart was racing, and her throat was dry. Beyond the marble steps and well-maintained lawn, she could see figures gathered in the parking area. Eleanor slammed on the brakes and jumped out of her car, leaving the engine running. Lily. She ran. The sound of her high heels striking the asphalt seemed distant to her ears. Police officers turned to look at her. Behind them stood her father's silver Cadillac. And through the window, she saw. Mommy. Let me out. It's hot. A 6-year-old girl desperately banging on the car window with her small fists. Lily's face was flushed red, her hair was wet with sweat, and her t-shirt was sticking to her body. Lily. It's okay, Mama's here. Eleanor rushed to the car. A police officer blocked her path. Are you Mrs. Miller? Yes. Please get my daughter out. The car is locked, and the air conditioning is turned off, a female officer explained calmly. Your daughter is conscious, but showing signs of heat stroke. Emergency responders are working to open the car. Eleanor looked over the officer's shoulder. Indeed, a firefighter was working to unlock the driver's door. The key? Where are Barbara and George? She cried. At that moment, a voice came from the direction of the mansion. Why are you making such a fuss, Eleanor? Barbara, George, and behind them Victoria, were walking toward the parking area with leisurely steps. All three looked as if they didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. Give me the key. Eleanor shouted at her mother. Barbara frowned and took the car key from her handbag. You're really overreacting. I just wanted to quiet her down for a while. Eleanor snatched the key from her mother and handed it to the firefighter. Hurry. Please. The firefighter quickly unlocked the door with the key and said to Lily, It's okay, now, little miss. You're safe now. Eleanor pulled her daughter out of the open door and hugged her tightly. Lily's body was abnormally hot, and her small chest was rising and falling with rapid breaths. Mommy, it was hot. Lily whispered weakly. I'm thirsty. Immediately, a paramedic rushed over and laid Lily on a stretcher. She's showing early symptoms of heat stroke. We'll treat her right away. Eleanor held Lily's small hand as she accompanied the stretcher. It's okay, Mama's here with you. While heading toward the ambulance, she looked back at her family. The three were still standing in the same place, with surprised or confused expressions. At that moment, the female police officer approached Barbara and the others and began speaking. Mother, why did you do this? Eleanor shouted, not leaving the stretcher. Barbara, while listening to the officer, answered her daughter. Lily was being noisy and wouldn't listen. That's how we discipline children in our day. George also folded his arms and nodded. If you don't discipline children strictly, they'll turn out badly. You're spoiling her too much. Victoria echoed in agreement, Mom's right. You're spoiling Lily too much. Children in the past were much more well-behaved. The female officer's expression changed. She took notes as she regarded the three with a stern gaze. The temperature inside the car was at dangerous levels, the officer said in an official tone. This clearly constitutes child abuse. Hearing those words, Barbara's expression finally changed. Abuse? That's absurd. We love our granddaughter. If there's love, you wouldn't put a child in danger, Eleanor said coldly. By the ambulance, paramedics were giving Lily N4 and attaching an oxygen mask. Body temperature 101.5 degrees Fahrenheit, mild to moderate dehydration, one of the medical staff reported. She'll need observation at the hospital. Trembling with fear and anger, Eleanor continued to hold Lily's hand. The 6-year-old's body looked small, and even smaller on the stretcher. Her breathing through the oxygen mask tore at Eleanor's heart. I'll ride in the ambulance, she told the paramedic. Of course, the medic nodded. Eleanor glanced once more at her family. They seemed to have finally begun to understand the gravity of the situation. Barbara had gone pale, George wore a confused expression, and Victoria stood clutching her own arms. Why did you put Lily in the car? Eleanor questioned again. Why did you think that was acceptable? Because she wouldn't listen, Barbara's voice no longer held conviction. She was beginning to notice the severe gazes of the police officers and paramedics around her. But I didn't think it would come to this. Are you saying you didn't know what happens when you lock a child in a car? Eleanor's voice was quiet but trembling with anger. It's been reported in newspapers and news countless times. Children die every year in locked cars. But I left the windows open a little, Victoria weakly excused. That doesn't help, Eleanor replied coldly. A few centimeters of gap barely affects the temperature inside the car. The ambulance doors opened, and the stretcher carrying Lily slid inside. Eleanor followed. I will never let you see Lily again, she declared to her family just before the doors closed. This is the end. In the ambulance, Eleanor held Lily's small hand tightly. The girl's eyelids moved slightly, and her eyes opened. Mommy. I'm here, Lily. It's okay, Eleanor smiled, holding back tears. It's all right now. I won't let anyone hurt you. Lily's lips moved under the oxygen mask. Grandma was angry because I was a bad girl. Eleanor's heart ached. No, Lily. You did nothing wrong. It was Grandma who was wrong. Adults make mistakes too. As the ambulance started moving with sirens blaring, Eleanor took out her smartphone and with trembling fingers dialed Mark's number. She and her ex-husband had maintained a friendly relationship after their divorce and shared joint custody of Lily. Mark, listen. Something terrible has happened, she began explaining, her voice shaking. Lily. As he listened to the explanation, Mark's angry voice grew louder on the other end. That's outrageous. I'm heading to the hospital right now. Which one is it? Eleanor gave him the name of the hospital and hung up. Outside the window, the Boston cityscape was passing by. The spring sunlight was still shining brightly, but Eleanor's world had been transformed. She exhaled deeply and steeled her resolve. For years, she had endured the dismissiveness of her parents, their favoritism toward her sister, the denial of her own worth, she had borne it all. But today, the moment they put Lily in danger, they crossed a line. She would never again allow any of her family members near Lily. As the ambulance approached the hospital, a new determination was born in Eleanor's heart. She was no longer a black sheep who would comply with her parents' and Victoria's wishes. The time had come for her to stand up, for Lily's sake and for her own. Mommy. I was scared. Lily whispered softly. It's all right now, Eleanor gently stroked her daughter's hair. Mama will protect you. No matter what. The bright lights of Massachusetts General Hospital's pediatric emergency ward shone unnaturally in the midnight silence. Eleanor sat in a chair in the hospital room, watching Lily sleep while receiving N4. Fortunately, the doctor's diagnosis was optimistic, moderate dehydration and mild heat stroke. She was expected to recover after overnight observation. You did well. Turning around, Eleanor saw Mark leaning against the doorway. Despite his tired expression, he had a small smile directed at their daughter. Eleanor and Mark's divorce had proceeded amicably, and they maintained a good relationship for Lily's sake. Mark hadn't remarried but lived within 3 kilometers of Eleanor and spent every weekend with Lily. "Thank you for coming," Eleanor said softly. Mark quietly entered the room and stood on the opposite side of the bed. Why would they do such a thing? His voice mixed anger and confusion. Eleanor shrugged. According to them, it was because Lily wouldn't listen. Old-fashioned discipline, they said. Discipline? Mark's face darkened. Locking a child in a car isn't discipline. It's abuse. The police said the same thing, Eleanor said, holding Lily's small hand. They took detailed statements from my parents and Victoria. An investigation for child abuse is starting. As it should, Mark's voice contained rare anger. I'm considering legal measures too. They must be kept away from Lily. Eleanor nodded. For a long time, she had tried to mend her relationship with her family. She had endured criticism from her parents and their favoritism toward her sister, trying to maintain Lily's relationship with her grandparents. But today, a line had been crossed. I'm ending it, she said quietly. Mark looked at her in surprise. Really? Eleanor gazed at Lily's sleeping face. I can no longer call people who endangered Lily my family. Suddenly, voices could be heard from the hallway. The tense voice of a nurse and a woman's carrying voice. It was Barbara. I'm her grandmother. I have the right to see my granddaughter. Eleanor and Mark exchanged glances. Mark stood up and headed for the door. I'll handle this. I'll come with you, Eleanor also stood up. Telling the nurse, I'll be away for a moment, but I'll be right back, she left the room. In the hallway stood Barbara, George, and Victoria. All 3, unlike a few hours ago, wore anxious expressions. Barbara was arguing with a nurse, George stood beside her with his arms folded, and Victoria stood a little distance away. Mother, Eleanor called coldly. All 3 turned at once. Eleanor? Barbara's face showed relief. How is Lily? Is she all right? According to the doctor, she should recover overnight, Eleanor answered formally. Did you talk to the police? Barbara frowned. That young officer doesn't understand anything. We weren't abusing her. We were just trying to discipline her. That's right, George agreed. Let's put the past behind us. We're family, aren't we? Mark stepped forward. Put it behind us? You've got to be kidding. Lily's life was in danger. Victoria spoke for the first time. But, it was really a misunderstanding. We didn't mean to. A misunderstanding? Eleanor's voice was quiet but sharp as a blade. What's the misunderstanding? That you locked Lily in a car? That you left her there even though she was scared and crying? You're raising her wrong. Barbara argued. That child is spoiled. In our day. I don't want to hear it anymore, Eleanor cut her off. She took an envelope from her handbag. This is a document sent from the lawyer. It's about the family estate management. George's eyes widened. That's the successor document? Why do you have it? I hadn't signed it yet, Eleanor answered calmly. Lily and I are no longer your family. We're cutting ties with you. Barbara gasped. What are you saying? You're not serious, are you? I am serious, Eleanor took out another document from her bag. This is an application for a restraining order. I'm submitting it to the court tomorrow. You're joking, right? George's face turned red. You were supposed to inherit the family company. Victoria doesn't have the talent for business. Eleanor smiled slightly. Now you say that? For years, you've ignored my ideas and put Victoria forward. And now you say you need me. Victoria looked at her sister with a hurt expression. Sis. Mark placed his hand on Eleanor's shoulder. I agree. Please stay away from Lily from now on. That's impossible. Barbara's voice trembled. We're the grandparents. We have rights. True family is bound by love and respect, Eleanor said quietly. You lack those. At that moment, the elevator doors opened, and two uniformed police officers appeared. One was the female officer from earlier at the scene. Are you Barbara Miller, George Miller, and Victoria Miller? The officer approached the three. We'd like to talk to you in more detail about the child abuse allegations. Would you please come to the station with us? Barbara turned pale. Abuse, we just wanted to discipline our beloved granddaughter. If you have anything to say, let's talk at the station, the officer said in a gentle but firm manner. The three stood stunned. George tried to say something but couldn't find the words. Victoria looked like she was about to cry. Eleanor? Barbara looked at her daughter with pleading eyes. Help us. Eleanor calmly looked back at her mother. Mother. Watching the three being led away by the officers, Eleanor felt a strange sense of liberation. It was as if a great weight had been lifted from her life. Are you okay? Mark asked gently. Eleanor nodded. Yes, I feel better actually. Maybe I should have done this sooner. They returned to the hospital room. Lily was still asleep, but her color was starting to improve. Eleanor sat next to her daughter and held her small hand. What will you do now? Mark asked, standing by the window looking down at the nighttime Boston streets. Eleanor thought for a moment before answering. A new beginning. For us, for Lily. I don't care about the family company. I'm here, Mark smiled gently. Lily needs her father. And. He hesitated slightly. You should have someone too. Eleanor looked up at him. After divorcing Mark, she had focused on work and raising Lily, never building new relationships. Right now, I have my hands full with Lily. I understand, Mark nodded. But we are a family. Just in a different form. Let's move forward together, for Lily's sake. Eleanor smiled. Yes. A true family is bound by love and respect, Mark completed her sentence. Outside the window, the pre-dawn Boston sky was beginning to change color, heralding the start of a new day. 1 year later. Autumn sunlight streamed through the windows of a small cottage in Cape Cod. Eleanor sat on the deck overlooking the sea, drinking coffee and reviewing work documents. Her real estate company, Miller New Homes, was growing steadily and gaining a reputation in the Boston area. From the beach came the sound of Lily's laughter. Now 7 years old, she was building a sandcastle with Mark. Their already friendly post-divorce relationship had deepened since that incident, creating a new form of family. Legally, they still shared joint custody, but Mark spent time with Lily more frequently than before, and it wasn't unusual for the three of them to spend vacations together. Her cell phone rang, and Eleanor looked at the screen. It was from Victoria. She took a deep breath and answered. Victoria. Sis. Her sister's voice, unlike before, sounded weak without its former arrogance. About Mom. Eleanor listened silently. 3 months ago, she had heard the news that Barbara had been diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. She doesn't have much time left. She wants to see you one last time. Choosing her words carefully, Eleanor replied, I will come. But I won't bring Lily. That's her wish. On the other end, Victoria took a small breath. I understand, thank you. 3 days later, Eleanor visited the Boston hospital. Barbara had deteriorated dramatically, without her once dignified presence, now small and shrunken. Eleanor, you came. Yes, Eleanor entered the room and stood by the bed. Lily? She's not here. I respected her wishes. Barbara laughed painfully. Of course. What I did is unforgivable. Mother, Eleanor sat down but didn't take her mother's hand. I don't forgive you, but I don't hate you either. What do you think family is? Barbara's voice was weak. Not blood ties, Eleanor looked out the window. Respecting each other and keeping each other safe. If you love someone, you don't hurt them. I was wrong. Tears fell from Barbara's eyes. I didn't understand your strength. I'm proud of you. Eleanor silently nodded. Over the past year, the Miller family real estate company had rapidly declined, and George had been forced to retire. Meanwhile, Eleanor's new company had achieved success, and she had proven her own talent and strength. You kept the name, Barbara said in a thin voice. For the company. Miller. That's my name too, Eleanor answered quietly. As she was leaving the room, George was waiting in the hallway. Her aged father fidgeted as if searching for words. Eleanor, about the inheritance. I don't need it, Eleanor looked at her father. I have what's important to me. When she returned to Cape Cod, Lily and Mark were waiting for her in front of the cottage. Lily ran up and hugged Eleanor. Mom, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine, Eleanor stroked her daughter's head. We have a wonderful family. Mark was smiling as he watched the two. Dinner's ready. Lily helped. The three entered the cottage illuminated by the setting sun. Eleanor thought to herself, more precious than blood ties is caring for, protecting, and respecting each other. That's the true meaning of family. Even if she had lost her inheritance and company, what she had gained was of immeasurable value. In her own strength and the chosen family, with Lily and Mark, Eleanor had finally found true happiness.